in one place.
You take it in stride.
Yeah, you take things in stride, Mr. Speaker, and that is why you think I'm happy. But eternally
members,
I'm suffering.
before we call the next order,
Thank you,
allow
Mr.
me to acknowledge the following in the majority leader. I have received gallery several members in my chamber. Also, Girls High School from Keio South, Elgeyo Marakwet. Your office should have a structure where committees in the public gallery. Routine we have Kenyatta University Students Association from Homa Bay County on the amount of work referred to them and the progress so far. So that way you'll also be abreast with whatever is going on. Girls Secondary School, Mingi West, Kitui, to respond instantly. And Yaki Girls Secondary School from Imenti North. I've received at least 4 or 5 members. Similar. On my behalf and on behalf of the House, we welcome the students and their teachers to the House of Parliament.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I was checking whether the chair of the Budget and Appropriations Committee is in the House.
John Badi.
Because in most instances,
Thank
and
you,
I know,
Mr.
for instance,
Speaker,
the case
the
for
statement
the PFM
that the Leader of Majority has just given, I was wondering because I made some legislative proposal, Mr. Speaker, way back last year.
They will usually lie in the Budget and Appropriations Committee, and the Honorable John Badi having been my member when I was the chairman of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, you remember
it was on a very important
at least
amendment to our PFM
every 2 months or so, we would appraise the House on the status of any legislative proposals, and I will pick that up with the chair of the Budget and Appropriations Committee to be giving us an update, actually not even to my office, an update to the House on members' legislative proposals, where they are, those that have money being effected and those that have
I don't know
the Budget and Appropriations Committee.
Of course, my frustrations too. And since this proposal I made to the Speaker, that is the point of call.
Honorable Speaker, to make sure that we occasionally update the House.
No, Mr. Speaker, this is the way I am. You know, I have been here for a while. You know, if you take 16 years in one place,
you take it in stride.
Yeah, you take things in stride, Mr. Speaker, and that is why you think I'm happy.
We need to follow up
But
because it's a very critical issue
I'm suffering.
in the management of finances in this country, and the abuse
Majority
that has
leader,
been there previously.
Majority Leader, I have received several members in my chamber. Thank you. Also raising similar complaints.
Order number 8, the Affordable Housing Bill, National Assembly Bill number 75 of 2023, second
give
reading.
you routine reports, maybe fortnightly or monthly, on the amount of work referred to them and the progress so far. So that way you also be abreast with whatever is
Speaker,
going
thank
on.
you for your indulgence. Mr.
And
Speaker,
on an issue like this, you
yesterday
can be
we were here
to respond instantaneously.
we took time to debate the motion
We've received at least 4 or 5
approved
members
on the femicide.
similar.
And in the middle of the motion is when the report for
majority.
this bill was presented by the chair of the committee.
Honorable Speaker, I was checking whether
Only
the
a
chair of the
night
Budget
has
and
passed.
So we add new.
And I'm sure night people have other
Because
businesses
in most
that they
instances,
conduct
and I
at
know,
night.
for instance, the case for
Especially on a Valentine Day, Mr. Speaker. Especially on a Valentine Day. I'm sure, Mr. Speaker, people are not conversant with the report of the committee and how it has gone.
will usually
Mr.
lie
Speaker,
in the
I was
budget
seeking your indulgence if more time can be given, even over the weekend, so that people can read, so that we see how housing affects everyone. Now we are, you know, Mr. Speaker, Parliament has conducted a thorough public participation this time. They have gone to every part of the country and they have listened to the people's views. And those views are contained in this report. So we need time to look at them and analyze them and internalize it. Then from there we say, this is, in the meantime, we could debate issues like NATCO now, for example. Then we come to housing after that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And of course, even others that will not have money being effected.
Kuna ile sijui kama ni ile kwa
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
but kuna ile ilikuanga hizo mfano.
I know his wife. Make sure that we occasionally update the House.
Watu wanataka
So when he talks about Valentine's,
kurudi,
Honorable Speaker,
they want to make
I
it
know
equally.
Jeanette's wife allowed him
As if you're
adequate
desperate.
time, especially that one,
So we
to
activate.
go through the report, even as he did the other things that pertains to Valentine's. And it's true, Honorable Speaker, that report was tabled yesterday afternoon. That is exactly almost 24 hours since it was tabled. And members, I'm certain, have had the opportunity to peruse through the report. And more importantly, Honourable Speaker, what I am moving for debate is the bill, not the report. The report only serves to inform what the work that the committee has done. And I agree with the Honourable Junet that the joint committee that you designated to handle this bill, Honourable Speaker, has done very good work.
Yesterday,
done extensive public participation in line with our constitution. Therefore, Honourable Speaker, ask that you allow me to continue, go ahead and move
and in the middle of the
debate
motion is
for the
when
second
the
reading of the bill.
This bill
as members.
the
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, I therefore beg to move.
And I'm sure people have other businesses that they conduct at night.
Just for good order.
Especially on a Valentine Day. Especially on a Valentine Day. I'm sure the Speaker, people are not conversant with the report of the committee and how it has gone.
Honourable Speaker,
From the Speaker, I was seeking your indulgence. More time can be given even over the weekend so that people can read, so that we see how housing affects everyone and how we are,
the bill has been
the Speaker of Parliament has conducted a thorough public participation this time. They have gone to every part of the country and they have listened to the people's views. And those views are contained in this report. Take the time to look at them and analyze them and internalize it. Then from there we say, this is in the meantime we will debate issues like NATCO now, for example. Then we come to housing after that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And therefore, it does not concern counties within the meaning of Article 110
Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
of the
You
Constitution.
know, Honourable Junet is my good friend and I know his wife.
Really, because I feel that I am
The
lost.
technicalities around.
So when he talks about Valentine's,
If the promoter of the
Honourable
bill
Speaker,
contends that the bill does not
I know
concern
Junet's wife allowed
that it
him
simply delves
adequate
into
time
matters
to
housing
go through the
policy.
report, even as he did the
No, I
other
am
things
raising
that
a
pertains to
issue
Valentine's.
that needs to be addressed before
And
the
it's true, Honourable Speaker, that report was tabled yesterday afternoon.
And if you go to-
it
if
is
you go
exactly
to
almost
Article-
24 hours since it was
If you
tabled.
go to Schedule 4,
And members, I'm certain, have
Schedule-
had the opportunity to
Schedule 4,
peruse through
the
the
fourth
report.
schedule of the Constitution.
And more importantly, Honourable Speaker,
Indeed-
what I am moving
Indeed,
for
housing
debate
policy
is
a function
the bill,
of the national
not the
government.
report.
At,
The report only serves to inform
at Article 20.
what the work that the committee
But
has
again,
done. And I agree with
if
the
you
Honourable
go
Junet
there, then to
that
the
the
functions
joint
of the
committee
county
that
governments,
you designated to handle
you will
this bill,
find
Honourable
at
Speaker,
paragraph
has done
8.
very good work.
At paragraph 8,
done
one of
extensive
the
public
functions of the county
participation
governments
in line with our constitution.
is
And therefore, Honourable
county
Speaker,
planning and
ask
development,
allow me
including,
to go ahead and
among
move,
many other things,
debate
at Part
for
D,
the second reading
housing.
of the bill
Proceed.
as members.
Speaker, this
Thank
matter
you, Honourable
requires
Speaker.
our
Honourable Speaker,
guidance,
I therefore
because
beg to
On
move.
the same point,
if
on a different issue.
if you say
Yes,
therefore
No,
that
we
this
just
bill
for
is
good
only
order.
dealing with
Yes.
housing policy, Yes, I think maybe this and is you the go time to the memorandum, raise this issue with you. the memorandum Because you of move objects the and same reasons. wavelength.
Yes, Speaker.
Honourable Speaker, if you look at the bill,
A casual glance
that
at
is
the
currently
memorandum
before
and
us.
objects of this bill
you will
Clearly,
notice
clearly
clearly at page
tells you,
213,
even if you are a layman, that
that
this bill
the bill
goes
has
beyond
been
policy.
characterized
It goes beyond policy.
as a bill
It delves
not
into
concerning
serious
counties.
matters of housing that affects counties directly.
and I want to direct you to allow me
In
just to
fact,
indulge me
it
one
even
second
has consequential
to read
amendments
that particular
to
paragraph.
the Employment Act.
That the bill relates to
It
the
has
broader
got serious
policy
issues. It
framework
even establishes
on
a board
housing,
that will
with
manage the
particular
fund.
emphasis
It
on
goes
so on
on
and so
and
forth.
on to determine how these funds will be raised.
and therefore
and
it
even
does not
the eligibility
concern
criteria for this
counties
house. So
within
in
the
a
meaning of
nutshell,
Article 110 of the Constitution.
Honourable Speaker, I need your guidance here.
If you go to the,
Really?
because I
Article
feel
110 of the
that I am lost, very finally.
Because if the
Article 110
promoter of the bill
Constitution contends that the bill does not concern counties, that it
thank
simply
you for
delves
indulging me,
into
Honourable
matters.
Yes, nimefungua tu awali.
My good friend, Honourable Chungwa.
no, I am raising a fundamental issue.
In
That
this,
needs to be addressed before
in
the
this
Speaker
constitution, I'm reading it verbatim.
It's very critical.
Honourable members.
In this
And if you
constitution,
go to a
if you
bill
go to
concerning a
Article-
county government,
if you go to Schedule
means,
4,
among other things, a bill
Schedule
containing
4,
provisions
the fourth schedule
affecting
of
the
the
functions
Constitution.
and powers of the
Indeed.
county government. set out in
indeed,
the
housing
Constitution,
policy
and so on and so
is a
forth.
function of
But
the
then it
national
goes ahead
government.
to say at Article 111, 20. 3. But again, before either House considers a bill, to the speakers of the National Assembly and Senate, you will find shall jointly resolve any question 8 as to whether it is a bill concerning counties, and one of the functions of the county whether it is a special or an ordinary bill. What am I saying? County planning that the House and development, including, among many other things, whether at Part D, that consultation between yourselves. Mr. Speaker, this is a matter that requires Article 1113. Guidance has taken place. And you've resolved if that this bill, if it's a bill that doesn't concern that this bill is only dealing with housing policy. That has to be clarified. And you go to the memorandum, because from where I stand, the memorandum I hold a strong view, very strong view, that in the manner this bill has been structured, the memorandum and objects of this bill, clearly tells you, even if you are layman, counties, that this bill goes beyond improperly characterized. That is my point. Beyond policy. It is improperly characterized. And that improper housing, that characterization must be directly corrected before we can directly. In fact, it even has consequential amendments to the Employment Act. It has got serious issues. It even establishes a board that will manage the funds. It goes on and on to determine how these funds will be raised, and even the eligibility criteria for this house. So in a nutshell, Honorable Speaker, I want to really take more time than this.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
If you go to the Article 110 of the Constitution.
Agree with the Leader of Minority to a large extent.
Article 110 of the Constitution.
That this bill concerns counties. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, first...
and thank you for indulging me, Honorable Speaker.
The courts,
it was on my wish to
have already held that before first reading, there is...
in this Constitution, I'm reading it verbatim, Honorable members,
one that concerns
in this Constitution, a bill concerning a county government
between yourself and the Speaker
means,
of the Senate,
among other things, a bill containing provisions affecting the functions and powers of the county government set out in the fourth schedule, and so on and so forth. But then it goes ahead to say at Article 111,
and you will be able
3,
to guide us.
that before either House considers a bill, the Speakers of the National Assembly and Senate shall jointly resolve any question as to whether it is a bill concerning counties, and if it is, whether it is a special or an ordinary bill. What am I saying? That the House needs to be guided.
But Honorable Speaker, even as a committee, that's why we had a joint committee.
That consultation between yourselves,
finance, engaged with stakeholders,
and Article 1113
it became clear that there are certain aspects of the bill
and you resolved
this bill to
that
go
this
to the
bill
Senate,
is a bill that doesn't concern counties,
Leader of the
and
Majority
therefore
in the
doesn't
Senate
have to go to the Senate.
is already waiting for us to do justice to this proposal.
Because from where I stand,
it will go to
I
them
hold a strong view,
eventually,
very strong view,
as at when, Honorable Speaker,
that in the manner this bill has been structured,
of the Senate do agree. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, I would want to beg
this
that
bill
we still go ahead and do what we ought to be doing now, debating,
and therefore it is
because some of the issues
characterized.
I've had the
That is my
Honorable
point.
speak to are
It is
issues
improperly
actually that we
characterized.
should be
And
speaking
that
to during debate.
improper
And therefore, we are just preempting
characterization
debate
must be
before we
corrected,
move.
before we can proceed.
And you allow me to move,
Thank you.
and we will have all the time today, tomorrow, if we want to sit tomorrow, on Tuesday afternoon, on Wednesday afternoon and morning, if we desire to, Honorable Speaker, to be able to debate all these issues. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, I want to beg your indulgence that you do allow me to move the bill, call a seconder, and then we open debate, and we can debate onto all those issues
with the
that
Leader
we
of
want to
Minority
debate on,
to a
including
large
whether
extent,
this
that there is no
bill
doubt that
will
this
enable
bill
us to build houses in
counties.
all the counties. So the speakers and
Content
finance
is in the
engage with
closest
stakeholders. It became clear
So
that
at
there
the
are
time
several for the
record
Speaker
only,
of the Senate to agree.
nothing else.
Therefore, Honorable Speaker, I would
This
want to
bill
beg that
concerns
we
counties.
still go ahead and do
Here it
what we ought to be doing
Proceed
now,
majority.
debating, because some of the issues I've had the Honorable Pio.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker,
Are issues
for that
actually that
guidance.
we should be speaking to during
And
debate.
indeed, the memorandum
Therefore, we are
is
just
just that, a
preempting debate
memorandum.
before
It's
we
a
move.
storyline that tells
And
you
you
what
allow
the
me
bill
to
is
move,
about.
and
but Honorable Speaker,
we'll have all the time.
That
Today,
matter is rested.
Yeah, I know,
tomorrow,
Mr.
if you
Speaker.
want to sit
No,
tomorrow,
Mr. Speaker,
on Tuesday afternoon,
for
on Wednesday afternoon
purposes
and
of
morning, if you
tidiness,
desire to,
to
Honorable
tidy up,
Speaker,
because
to be
no,
able
these
to
bills,
debate
Mr.
all
Speaker,
these
after
issues.
we finish with them
Therefore,
here,
Honorable Speaker, I
there are
want
other
to beg
people
your
who deal with
indulgence
them,
that you do allow
take
me
them
to
to
move
elsewhere.
the bill.
So
Call
we
a
will,
seconder, and then we
we
open
can
debate,
debate on this
and we
bill
can debate
based
onto
on
all
your
those
ruling.
issues that we want to debate on,
the
including
memorandum, the definitions in the memorandum and
will enable us to build
have been
houses
expunged
in
or
all
something
the
like
counties
that.
that we
Otherwise,
went
Mr.
for
Speaker,
public
somebody
participation.
will use the bill that as of when it was being moved at the second stage, it says that this bill does not concern counties. It's as period as that. So if the Speaker has made a ruling that I have used standing order number 1 and I've expunged that definition, then, Mr. Speaker, we are safe. But otherwise, we are debating a defective bill. Because, Mr. Speaker, the memorandum and objects inform the article.
Exchange order, Junet. You are overstretching your imagination. That this is a bill that concerns what the chair has directed. So from here, automatically becomes an addendum to what you will eventually decide. Description in the memorandum. So the matter rests and objects. Let's have the majority leader move the bill. Is something curable. In any event, at the end
Thank you, Honourable
of
Speaker.
this bill, the memorandum and objects
Honourable Speaker,
of the bill,
I therefore beg to move that the Affordable Housing Bill, National Assembly Bill number 75 of 2023,
is in the
be now
clauses
read
of the
a
bill.
second time.
So at the
Honourable
time
Speaker,
you
maybe for the
go
comfort
to
of Honourable
committee
Junet,
stage,
I will repeat once
you
again
can
that
very
this
well,
bill
for purpose of
has
aligning
moved
the bill in the line
concerns
of the
counties,
arguments of the
and
minority leader,
if approved
amend
by the House,
memorandum and
will
objects,
find its way to the
and
Senate.
remove any offending words.
Honourable Speaker, allow me to begin by first
And for
thanking
purposes of
the
record
chair of
only,
the Housing Committee,
and
the
nothing
Honourable
else.
Ngeno, who is here,
This
the
bill
Honourable
concerns
Manikuria,
counties.
our chair of the Finance
From here, it goes to
Committee,
Senate.
who,
Proceed,
together with
majority.
their members, there are 30 members, Honourable Speaker, spent a
Thank you, Honourable
considerable amount
Speaker,
of their recess
for
time
that guidance.
going round 19
And indeed, the
out of
memorandum
our
is
47
just that,
counties.
a memorandum.
In a very
It's a
extensive
story
public
like
participation
tells you
what the bill
that
is
they
about.
conducted, but Honourable
Throughout
Speaker,
the country, listening
That
and
matter
consulting
is
a
rested.
wide
Yeah, I know, Mr.
section of
Speaker.
stakeholders and
No,
technical
Mr.
experts
Speaker,
by way of public hearings.
for
As I mentioned, in
purposes
19
of
counties,
tidiness,
Honourable
to tidy
Speaker,
up, because
including
you know,
the
these
county of
bills, Mr.
Nairobi
Speaker,
and
after we
in
finish with them
Parliament.
here,
Honourable
the other
Speaker, this
people deal
committee
with
has
them
done a
and
commendable
take
work,
them to elsewhere.
and they have indeed, as I mentioned,
we can debate
when,
on this
responding to
bill
the
based
point of
on
order,
your ruling.
done a lot
that
of justice to this
the
bill.
memorandum,
Honourable
the
Speaker,
definitions in the
bills
memorandum
as
and objects
proposed are
have
mere
been expunged
legislative
or something like
proposals,
that. Otherwise,
and
Mr. Speaker,
therefore
somebody
require
will
the
use the
input
bill
of
that
our committees.
as of when it
And
was
that's
being
why
moved
I
at the
take a lot
second
of time
stage,
to thank the committee because
it
they have
says
done a
that
lot
this
of
bill does not
invaluable
concern
work.
counties.
They
It's as
consulted
period as
very
that.
many
So if
experts
the
from,
Speaker has made a ruling
experts in the
that
housing sector,
I have
finance
used standing order
experts,
number 1 and I've
and even
expunged that
ordinary
definition,
Kenyans,
then
Honourable
Mr. Speaker, we are
who
safe.
are
But
potential
otherwise, we are
beneficiaries of
debating a
the housing,
defective bill. Because, Mr.
this
Speaker,
housing agenda,
the
housing
memorandum and
bill,
objects
and including,
inform
Honourable
the
Speaker,
article.
potential
Order,
contributors
Junet.
to the fund. And we
You
saw
are
Kenyans
overstretching
coming
your
out
imagination.
to agree with the court that indeed the levy, the housing
chair
levy,
has
as it were in
directed
the Finance Act, had
automatically
discriminated
becomes
against some
an
who want to
addendum to
contribute.
what you will
And there were-
eventually
I was impressed
decide.
when I saw on TV
So the matter
Kenyans
rests
coming
there.
out to say that they want to
Let's
contribute
have
to
the
this
majority
fund
leader move
because
the
they
bill.
understand its input in our national development and
Thank
in
you,
the
Honourable Speaker.
job creation endeavor all for our country.
Honourable
Appreciating,
Speaker,
Honourable Speaker, that there are
I
millions
therefore beg to
of young
move
Kenyans
that the Affordable
across the
Housing
country
Bill,
who
National
have
Assembly
no
Bill
jobs.
number 75
Kenyans from
of
many walks of
2023
life, including
be now
people
read a
who
second
are
time.
in self-employment.
Honourable Speaker, maybe
I
for the
saw,
comfort of Honourable Junet, I will repeat
market
once again
traders.
that this bill
I don't
has
remember whether they were
moved
from Kariokor,
concerns
Chair
counties,
Finance or Chair
and
Housing would have reminded me,
if approved by the
who
House,
appeared before the
will find its
committee
way to the
and
Senate.
asserted that they would
Honourable
want
Speaker,
to
allow
actually
me
find
to
a
begin by
mechanism to
first
be able to
thanking the
contribute to
chair
the fund,
of the Housing
not
Committee,
only
Honourable
to
Ngeno, who is
be
here,
able
the
to
Honourable
access
Manikuria,
housing
our chair
as
of the
a
Finance
constitutional right under Article
Committee,
43 of our Constitution,
who, together with
but
their
also
members,
to offer
there are
other
30 members, Honourable
young
Speaker,
Kenyans
spent
and other
a
unemployed
considerable
Kenyans
amount
an
of their recess
opportunity
time
to access
going
job
round
opportunities.
19 out of
Honourable
our
Speaker, we
47
saw
counties
many
in a
professionals,
very extensive public
architects,
participation
engineers,
that they
lawyers,
conducted
accountants who
throughout the
appeared
country,
before the committee,
listening
the
and
two
consulting a
committees,
wide cross-section of
contending that
stakeholders
the
and
job
technical
creation
experts
agenda that
by way of
comes with this
public
housing
hearings.
agenda
As I
is
mentioned,
not
in
just what
19
has been
counties,
said in
Honourable Speaker,
political rallies and in
including the county
funerals,
of Nairobi
that it's
and
about
in Parliament.
what we
Honourable
call
Speaker, this
what we
committee has done a
in
commendable
construction
work,
sites and
they have indeed, as I mentioned,
quantity
when
surveyors,
responding to the point of
engineers
order,
from civil, electrical,
done a lot of justice
to
to
water
this bill.
engineers,
Honourable Speaker,
accessing
bills
huge
as
opportunities
proposed
in
are
jobs that are being
proposals,
created by this
and
agenda.
therefore
And many
require
Kenyans
the
express the
input of
desire
our committees.
and the need
And that's why
to
I take
have
of
a legal
time to
framework,
thank the committee,
Honourable
because they
Speaker,
have
that
done a lot
would
of
actualize
invaluable
this
work.
housing agenda.
Therefore,
Therefore,
Honourable Speaker, if you go to the objects of the bill, under Article 3,
in the housing sector to
one,
finance experts, and
it is
even
envisaged,
ordinary
Honourable Speaker,
Kenyans,
that
Honourable
this
Speaker,
act,
who
this
are
bill, once
potential
it
beneficiaries
becomes
of the
announced,
housing,
will have
this housing agenda,
three
and the housing
key
bill,
objectives.
and
One is to
Honourable
give
Speaker,
effect to Article 43
potential
of our
contributors to the
Constitution
fund.
43(1)
And
bill
we saw Kenyans
on the right
coming
to
out
accessible and adequate housing.
agree with
And
the
Honourable
thought
Speaker,
that
for
indeed,
members like Honourable
the
Juliet,
levy,
who
the
took
housing
time
levy
last
as
night
it were in the
to go
Finance
through the
Act,
committee's
had
report,
discriminated
they will
against
see the
some
committee
who
has
want to
indeed also
contribute.
proposed
And
an
I was
amendment
impressed
to
when I saw
include the
TV
words to
Kenyans coming out
to
to say that they
reasonable
want to
standards
contribute to
of
this fund
sanitation,
because
so that
they
we don't
understand,
just have
its input in
provide
our national
affordable
development and in the
housing,
job
but
creation
housing that
endeavors
has
of our country.
in the words
Appreciating
of our
Honourable Speaker, that
Constitution,
there are
reasonable
millions
standard
of young
of
Kenyans
sanitation.
across the country who have
Two,
no jobs.
Honourable Speaker, the second
Kenyans
objective is to
from many
impose
walks
a
of
levy
life,
to facilitate the provision of
including
affordable
people who
housing.
are in self-employment.
And
Honourable
C,
Speaker,
or 3,
I
is to
saw,
provide a legal
some
framework
market
for the
traders.
implementation
I
of the
don't
housing
remember whether they were from
programs
Kagiko, the
and
chair,
projects.
Honourable
Honourable
Speaker,
Speaker,
this
this
is
is one
one
of the
that
areas
reminded me
that the
who
courts
appeared before the
found
committee
wanting.
and
In what was
asserted
passed
that they
during
would
the
want
Finance
to
Act,
actually
the
find
court
a
did advise
mechanism to be able to
at least
contribute to the
that,
fund.
important
Not
things.
only
That
to
one, they lacked a
be
legal
able to
framework,
access
and that is what
housing
now this new
as a constitutional right
and
under
legislation
Article 44
intends to do,
Constitution,
to create that
but
legal
also to
framework
offer other
for the implementation
young
of the
Kenyans
affordable
and
housing
other
programs
unemployed
and
Kenyans
projects.
an opportunity
That now, under this
to
act, Honourable
access
Speaker,
job
will have that
opportunities.
legal framework.
Honourable Speaker, we saw
courts
many
found
professionals
as not having
architects,
had one.
engineers,
Although Honourable Speaker had a
lawyers,
problem with that
accountants who
particular
appeared
finding of
before the
court
committees, the
Honourable
two
Speaker, I don't want
committees,
to get into issues
contending
that
that
could
the
be
job creation
Honourable Speaker,
agenda
when
that
we
comes
talk
with this
about
housing
a legal
agenda
framework
is
on
not just what has been said in
of a government
political
program,
rallies and
Honourable
in
Speaker,
funerals, that it's about
what we call,
what we
in construction sites
Honourable
and
Speaker
fundings,
created that legal
Honourable
framework
Speaker,
on how you appropriate funds, quantity surveyors,
implement
engineers from the civil
agenda. Honourable Speaker, as I said, I don't get into legalism that
huge opportunities in jobs that
be
are
on
being
the
created by
verge
this
of
agenda.
getting into
And many
these
Kenyans
issues.
express
We
the
leave it to
desire
the lawyers in the
and
court
the
of
need
appeal
to
Honourable Speaker, the
have a
second
legal
issue that
framework
was raised by
Honourable
the
Speaker
courts
that would
was
actualize this
the
housing
issue
agenda
of the levy.
Therefore, Honourable Speaker,
That
if
we
you
are
go to the
creating
objects of the bill,
under the
under
second
Article
object,
3,
the imposition of a levy to
one,
facilitate the provision of affordable housing.
it is envisaged, Honourable Speaker, that this
levy,
act,
this
was
bill,
imposed under
once
the Finance
it
Bill
becomes an act,
or the Finance Act
will
of
have
2023,
three key objectives. One is to give effect to Article 43
and
of our Constitution 43(1) bill
it only
on the right to accessible and adequate housing. And Honourable Speaker, for members like Honourable Junet, who took time last night
we have
to
now
go
made
through
it
the committee's
possible
report,
for
they will
even
see the
people who are
committee
not
has
salaried
indeed also
to be
proposed
able
an
to
amendment
contribute.
to
And Honourable
include the
Speaker, as I
words
said,
a reasonable,
I was
to
impressed
reasonable
to
standard
see
of
very
sanitation,
patriotic
so that we
Kenyans
don't just have
coming out before the committee
provide
saying that
affordable
they actually
housing,
not only
but
want to
housing
be
that
beneficiaries
has,
of the houses that
in the
will be
words
built,
of our
but they
Constitution,
want to be
reasonable standards
contributors to
of
the fund.
sanitation.
They want to pay their fair
Two,
share.
Honourable Speaker,
Just
the
like
second
those people
objective
who
is
are
to
employed
impose
or
a
who are
levy
salaried.
to facilitate
Honourable
the provision
Speaker,
of
we must
affordable
continue
housing
to encourage
these
and
very
C
patriotic
or
Kenyans
three is
who
to
have
provide
come out to
a
say
legal
that they
framework
want to contribute
for
to
the
this fund.
implementation
Therefore,
of
Honourable
the
Speaker,
housing
if you
programs
look at
and projects. Honourable
those
Speaker,
who
this
care
is
to
one of
go
the
through the
areas
committee's report,
that the courts
they will see
found
also that
wanting. In
under
what
clause
was
4,
passed during
where
the Finance Act,
the
the
court
court
did
did
the
advise
imposition of the affordable
at
housing
least
levy
to
at the rate of 1.5%.
they are not for a legal
Employee
framework.
or
And that is what now
income
this new
of a
proposed
person, and that person is a legal
legislation
person,
intends to do.
Therefore,
Create
create that legal framework
individual or
for the
business
implementation of the affordable housing programs
and projects.
That
Now,
now under
under
this act, Honourable Speaker, there existed a lacuna in this clause 4 of the bill,
found
where as companies
or
employers
had a problem with
who have
that
already
particular finding
deducted
of the court was
and
as much as,
remitted a matching amount to the levy for its employees,
because
were
Honourable
again
Speaker, when we
subjected
talk about a legal
to
framework for
pay the levy
implementation of a
again
government
on their
program,
own own gross income. Honorable Speaker, the committee has made certain recommendations
that we passed
this lacuna.
Honorable Speaker,
That
created
if you are
that legal
collecting,
framework
if you are
on how
collecting
you
as an employer,
funds
then you
to
again
implement
will not be
government
levied
projects,
the same,
including the housing agenda.
on your gross
as I said,
income.
I don't want to get into
The committee also, Honorable Speaker, has provided safeguards in the amendment
of getting
on
into such
judicial
issues
that
we
the
leave it
courts
to the lawyers
did
in the
ask
Court of Appeal.
on
Whether
whether
the second issue that was
discriminatory
raised by the courts was the issue of the levy.
It is only levied
that we are
on
creating
people who are under the second object, the imposition of a levy. The amendment that the committee is proposing, Honorable Speaker,
courts did
has
find
cured
that
this
the
matter
levy
in clause
that
4
was
again by
imposed under
providing
the
that
Finance
apart
Bill
from the salary
Finance
persons,
Act of 2023,
in clause 4A,
the gross
income
income
of a person in the informal sector,
constitutional
and
in the sense
clause
that
4B
it only
is
levied
also subjected
this
to this levy.
against or
However,
on people
Honorable
who are
Speaker,
salaried.
the bill
Honorable
was
Speaker,
silent
in
also
this new
on
law,
the mode of
we have
collection
now made it
of this,
possible for
by
even people
whoever
who are
will
not
be the
salaried
collector of this levy,
to be able to
and in this
contribute.
case, KRA.
Honorable Speaker, as I said,
and the
I
committee
was
again has
impressed
sought to cure
to
this.
see very
And in the amendments that will be
patriotic
coming
Kenyans
during the
coming
third
out before
reading,
the committee
the
saying
committee
that they
will be
actually
introducing an
not
amendment
only
that
want to
will
be
allow
beneficiaries
the
of the
use
houses
of
that
the
will be
provision
built,
of
but they want to be
the
contributors
Tax
to the
Procedures
fund.
Act of 2015
They want to pay their
to apply
fair share
also for this levy,
just like those people
such
who
that
are
the
employed
same
or
way
who are
Honorable
salaried.
Speaker, for income
Honorable
tax.
Speaker, we must continue
For
to
us who are
encourage
employed and
these very
salaried, Honorable
patriotic
Speaker, we
Kenyans
pay
who
as
have
you
come
want.
out to say that they want to
And
contribute
this
to this
is
fund.
deducted
Therefore, Honorable
by
Speaker,
our
if
employers
you
and
look
remitted
at
by the 9th of every
for
month
those who
to
cared to go
KRA,
through the committee's
but
report,
for people who are
they will
self-employed
see
or
people
people
who
who
are in the
that,
informal sector
under
Honorable
clause
Speaker,
4,
on a monthly
where
basis, on a quarterly
that's
basis,
providing for the imposition
they
of
do
the
the installment
affordable housing
taxes,
levy at the rate of
and they have
1.5%
the
of the gross
option
salary
whether
of an
you want to pay
employee
installment
or
tax, whether you want to pay
income
advance tax, whether you
of
want to
a
pay your
person, and
tax
that person
at
is
the
a
end
legal
of the year.
person.
Honorable
Therefore,
Speaker,
could
now
be
it will be
an
an
individual
obligation
or business
that
entity
every
or
Kenyan who is
a
earning an
company.
income
Honorable
contributes to
Speaker,
this fund, and
there
through
exists
the
a
tax
lacuna in this
procedures
clause
Act
4 of the
2015,
bill,
they will be required
companies
or
make their
employers tax
who
returns
have already
KRA
deducted
and
and
show
remitted
how
a
they
matching
will,
amount
pay
of the levy
or
for
pay
its
their
employees
housing
were
levy,
again
Honorable Speaker.
subjected to
This, in a way, Honorable Speaker, let
pay
me
the levy
again
on
for
their own
good
gross
manners
income.
take this
And
opportunity
Honorable
to
Speaker,
thank
the
the
committee
courts
has made certain recommendations
because they have
that will
actually
cure
made
this
it possible
lacuna,
now for
that
government to
if you are
collect more money.
if you are collecting as an employer,
initially was to collect
will not
only
be levied the
from
same
the salaried people, but we
on
shall
your
now
gross
be able
income.
to collect more money.
The committee
in a fund
also,
that
Honorable
was
Speaker, has
envisaged
provided
to collect
safeguards
probably 63
in
billion
the
shillings.
amendments.
We should now
on
be
that
able to collect
question
more money,
that the courts
and therefore
did
be
ask
able to roll out
whether
more I will only
the amendment that the committee is
those
proposing
members of Parliament who
has cured this matter in clause 4 again. And in the amendments that will be coming during the third reading,
projecting to
the
employ
committee
close to
will be
2,000
introducing an amendment that will allow
on site directly
the
and
use of
many
the
others
provision of
indirectly, Honorable Speaker.
the
Honorable
Tax
Speaker,
Procedures
you
Act
remember
of
I was with you
2015
the other day
to apply
when we
also
passed by a
for this
site in
levy.
Kakamega
Such
Town.
that the same way,
And you
Honorable
remember
Speaker, for
what
income
those
tax,
young men and
that for us
young
who are
ladies
employed
at that
and
site
salaried,
told
Honorable
us
Speaker, we pay
that we should
pay
go
as
and
we
tell
want.
those people in Nairobi
And this is
who are
deducted
talking ill
by
of
our
this
employers
housing
and remitted
project
by the 9th of
to
every
know
month
that is where they are
KRA.
earning their daily bread.
But for
That
people
is where
who
they
are
are educating their
self-employed
children
or
from.
people who are in
That's
the
Honorable
informal
Speaker,
sector,
Honorable Speaker, on a monthly
the
basis, on a quarterly
suppliers of
basis,
steel
they do their installment
in these
taxes,
housing projects,
and
Honorable
they
Speaker,
have the
suppliers
option
of cement,
whether you want to pay installment tax,
timber
whether you want to
traders,
pay
Honorable
advance
Speaker,
tax,
across
whether you
this
want to
country
pay your
today
tax at the end
are
of the
not
year.
able to
Honorable Speaker,
satisfy
now
the
it will
demand
be
for
an
timber.
obligation that
I have a
every
friend who
Kenyan who is
trades
earning
in
an
timber
income
from Congo.
contributes to this fund.
He's telling me
and
they are
through
now
the Tax
struggling to
Procedures
get
Act of
transport to
2015,
transport
they will
timber
be required
from as
then
far as Congo,
to make their
Tanzania, Honorable
tax
Speaker,
returns
because of the
KRA
huge
and
demand
show how
of
they
timber,
will
of marine
pay
boats,
or pay
of
their
steel in this country
housing
today,
levy,
Speaker.
Honorable Speaker. This
Honorable
in a way,
Speaker,
Honorable
the
Speaker, let me
factory that His Excellency the President
for good
commissioned
manners, take this
last year,
opportunity
but
to
thank
thank
the courts
in
because
Mariakani,
they have
in the
actually
coast,
made it possible now
and
for
those
government
members
to collect
collect
more
more
money.
Government
that
initially was to collect by
from the salaried people, but we shall now be able to collect more money in a fund that was then
factory
decided to
Honorable
collect
Speaker,
probably 63
is
billion
unable to
shillings, we
satisfy
should now
the
be able to
demand for
collect more
steel
money
today
and
in this
therefore
country,
be able
Honorable
to roll
Speaker.
out more
Courtesy
projects across the
Honorable
country.
Speaker.
In
And it's not just
all our
about
47
steel,
counties and in
cement,
all our
timber, and all the
290
other,
constituencies. And Honorable
auxiliary
Speaker, I
items
will want
that
to take
get
this
into
opportunity
construction, Honorable
to
Speaker.
encourage
the huge
those members of
opportunities
parliament
that
who have
exist
not complied
in
with the
job
memoranda
creation, Honorable
or the
Speaker,
letter that was sent by
is
the
what
Principal
each
Secretary
one of us
in charge
today
of
here
housing to
ought to
be speaking
pose
to.
sides
There is
for
none of
construction
us,
of this
Honorable
affordable
Speaker,
housing
back
in your
our
constituencies.
Honorable
Who
Speaker,
is not
I am a
confronted
beneficiary
by
of this project
many
in
young
Kikuyu.
men and women
And I can tell
looking
you,
for job
in
opportunities.
a project where we are doing
Many of
about
them qualified, Honorable Speaker.
755 or
Last night I was
757
speaking to a
houses
young man
between
called
Kevin
us and
Omondi, our
Onyango.
neighbors, Kabete constituency.
And I got a video, Honorable Speaker, a young man from
projecting to employ close
a friend
to
of mine
2,000
forwarded
people
me a video
on
of
site
that
directly,
young man that he had
and
recorded
many
himself.
others indirectly, Honorable Speaker.
A first
Honorable
class
Speaker,
honors
you remember I was with
with
you
a
the
Bachelor
other
of
day
Economics
when we
degree,
passed by a site
a
in
CPA
Kakamega
K,
town. And you
who is
remember
doing
what those
manual
young
jobs
men and
in the
young
EPZ
ladies
in
at that site
Kitengela,
told
Honorable
us
Speaker,
and have an
that
appointment
we
with
should
that
go and
young
tell
man
those
next
people
week,
in Nairobi
Tuesday,
who
to
are
see how we
talking
can
ill
help him,
of
Honorable
this
Speaker,
housing project,
because it's not
to
just
know
enough
that
to
is
talk
where
about
they are
people
earning their
and
daily bread.
jobs,
That
but
is where
we
they are
must be
educating their
able to
children
do
from.
something to
That,
create
Honorable
jobs for
Speaker,
them.
it is opportunities
The
for young men
suppliers
like
of
Kevin
steel
Omondi
in this housing
who
project,
can
Honorable
work
Speaker,
as accountants in
suppliers
cement
of cement,
factories in the river, timber
or
traders,
steel
Honorable
factories,
Speaker, across this country today,
Honorable Speaker,
and
or
not
even
able
become
to
very good
satisfy the
accountants for
demand
the
for
contractors
timber who are doing this housing
I have
project
a friend who
that we must speak today.
trades in timber
We must
from
speak
Congo
to
today. He's telling
Honorable,
me,
they are
Speaker,
now
I
struggling
want to
get
invite all of
transport
us,
to transport timber,
including my good
from
friend
as far
Opio
as
and I,
Congo,
and I am not sure he is
Tanzania,
here to
Honorable
provide
Speaker,
a list
because of the
of,
huge demand of
probable
timber,
sites
of
in
marine
Ugunja,
boats,
where
of steel
housing
country
projects
today,
can be actualized.
Honorable Speaker,
I know the Honorable Junet in
that
Suna
His
East
Excellency the President
is very keen
commissioned
to
last year,
ensure
part
that
one,
there is a housing project
in
in Suna
Maria
East,
Kani,
in the
because
coast,
it will create
and those members from the
hundreds,
coast.
if not thousands, of job
The
opportunities.
factory owned
Urbanization
by,
today, Honorable Speaker,
I
will not
think
be
it's
possible
Deputy Steel
without
Mills.
an agenda like this in housing.
That
Honorable
factory
Speaker.
today, Honorable Speaker,
My good friends,
is unable to
Honorable
satisfy
Pio and
the
I
demand
and,
for steel
today in this
the
country,
others
Honorable
that who are
Speaker.
in the National
Courtesy of
Dialogue
these
Committee,
projects, Honorable Speaker,
including the
and
Honorable
it's not just
Amina,
about steel,
from Malindi.
cement, timber, and all the other.
Will tell you
auxiliary items that get
economies
into
of
construction,
repute
Honorable
in this
Speaker.
country,
The huge
and
opportunities
including
that
international
exist
economic
in
job
institutions,
creation, Honorable Speaker, is
appeared
what
before
each
the
one of
National
us
Dialogue
today here
Committee and told us
ought to be
that
speaking
for
to.
a country whose
There is
economy
none of us, Honorable
was in
Speaker,
the doldrums that
back
we
in our
found our economy
constituencies,
in, who
at
is
the
not
end of 2022,
confronted
Honorable Speaker,
by many
for
young
us to
men
be
and
able
women
looking
to
for
get
job
our
opportunities.
economy working again.
Many of them
we
qualified,
must
Honorable
be
Speaker.
able to massively
Last night I was
invest
speaking to a young
and
man
aggressively
called Kevin
invest
Omondi
in
Onyango.
huge. And I got a video,
And I
Honorable
think,
Speaker, a young
I
man
can't
from
remember,
Migori,
I think it was a gentleman
a friend
from
of mine
SID
forwarded
to me a video
who
of
told
that
us
young
that
man
there
that he
is
had
no
recorded himself.
other way of getting out
A
of the economic
first-class
mess that we are
honors
in other
with a
than a
Bachelor of
program
Economics
that will
degree,
aggressively
a CPA
and massively invest in
manual
huge
jobs in the
infrastructural
EPZ
development.
Honorable Speaker, and have an appointment
What
with
greater
that young man
opportunity,
next
Honorable
week,
Speaker,
Tuesday,
than this
to see
housing
how we can
agenda
help him, Honorable Speaker,
to raise money
because it's not
through
just
the housing
enough to
levy
talk about
and
people
through the
and
housing fund,
jobs, but we must be
able
able
to
to
massively
something to
invest
create
in
jobs for them.
infrastructural
It is opportunities for
investments
young
that
men
will
like
not
Kevin
only
Omondi
create who can work as
an
opportunity for millions of Kenyans to have affordable homes.
Honorable Speaker,
Affordable homes,
or
Honorable
even
Speaker,
become very good accountants
as
for
is
the
required of us
contractors
by
who are doing
Article
this housing
43
project
of our
that we
Constitution.
must speak today.
But
We
also
must speak
homes
to today.
with
Honorable
proper
Speaker, I want to
and
invite
in the
all
words,
of us,
Honorable Speaker of our Constitution,
including
it
my good
says,
friend Opio and I,
with reasonable
and I am
standards
not
of
sure he is
sanitation.
here to provide a list
Reasonable standards of sanitation, Honorable Speaker,
probable sites in
is what
Ugunja.
is happening in this
where
project, Honorable Speaker.
housing
At least
projects
even
can be
under the
actualized.
social housing.
I know the Honorable Junet
Even the studio
in Suna
unit
East is
have
very keen
a kitchenette,
to ensure that
they
there is a
have a
housing
reasonable
project in
toilet
Suna
and
East.
bathroom, because it will
And
create,
Honorable Speaker,
hundreds,
even people
if
in
not
Kibra Kibra, thousands of job opportunities. People in Korogosho, urbanization to Mathare, Speaker, will now not be possible without an agenda like where they don't have to go through the indignity. My good friends, having to use flying toilets, we will give them dignified settlements where they can live as human beings. Honorable Speaker, not just people in our slum areas. We'll tell you, even officers like our policemen and women in this country. And I have had critics of this bill, Honorable Speaker, international economic asking why we're not building houses for our police. Appeared before the national. And I see many even members of Parliament, Honorable Speaker, that for a country was economy. Speaking on TV stations and asking why we're not building houses for policemen and women. At the end of 2022, we are the same people in this house. For us to be able who change policy, get our economy how we provide housing for our policemen and women. Able to members know today they are not even able to really invest in housing. Huge house staff quarters for policemen. I can't remember because the police were given housing allowance. But in this bill, Honorable Speaker, there is no other way of getting out of the economic mess that we are in one of the amendments, I think, to clause 3, Honorable Speaker, and massively to clause 2, invest in huge. They have proposed, Honorable Speaker, to include institutional housing. An institutional housing opportunity now will come to cater for this housing agenda, special category of Kenya, to raise money through the housing levy and through the housing fund. I think it's a Vice Chancellor of Technical University of Nairobi, investments that will not only create an opportunity for millions of Kenyans.
You're one of a kind, so is your writing. Wilbot's custom paraphrasing mode gives your writing a personal flair. When you write with custom mode, you can feel confident that your writing is better, faster, and more original. Try it today.
And these students with reasonable standards of sanitation
is better, faster, and more original. Try it today.
And these students with reasonable standards of sanitation
is better, faster, and more original. Try it today.
Is better,
faster, and more original. Try it today.
They have proposed, Honorable Speaker, to include institutional housing. And institutional housing, Honorable Speaker, now will come together for a very special category of Kenya. Students, Honorable Speaker, in public universities. And institutional housing, I think it's the Vice Chancellor of Technical University of Nairobi. Special category of Kenya. Who has no other relative in Nairobi, is admitted to the Technical University of Kenya and has no other source of accommodation other than going to get some shack, is admitted to the Technical University of Kenya South B and has no other source of accommodation other than going to get some student is admitted to the Technical University of Kenya South B and has no other source of accommodation other than going to get to the Technical University of Kenya B and has no other source of accommodation other than to the Technical University of Kenya B and has no other source of accommodation
your domain today at GoDaddy, ready to take your idea online. Your domain awaits.
I wish also to rise. I wish also to rise the joint committees that. I wish also to rise the joint committees that. I wish also to rise the joint committees that. Of our Constitution, Mr. Speaker, obliges the government to ensure access of our Constitution, Mr. Speaker, among other recommendations, obliges the government goes with the affordable housing to ensure. Of our Constitution, Mr. Speaker, among other recommendations, obliges the government to ensure of our Constitution, Mr. Speaker, among other recommendations, obliges the government to ensure of our Constitution, Mr. Speaker, among that not other people are prejudiced or not other people are disadvantaged. Mr. Speaker, the other question which people raised also, Mr. Speaker, is how do we build these houses? There was the question of voluntary contribution, Mr. Speaker, among
What's up, guys? In this short tutorial, I will show you how to fix audio echo in OBS Studio. This should be quite an easy tutorial. Everything you need will be listed in the description below. If you experience any echo while recording or live streaming on OBS, simply head over to the audio mixer panel located at the bottom. Analyze it correctly and test it out by speaking through your microphone. Ensure that only the source you want to use as your microphone should fluctuate while you speak. If you notice any other source picking up your audio while you speak, simply disable it by clicking on the speaker button located next to it. After fixing the audio mixer, if you're still experiencing echo, head over to File and select Settings. In the Settings menu, open up the Audio tab. Under Global Audio Devices, disable all the other devices, except the one that you want to use as your audio source. Now, test the audio again by enabling these audio devices one by one. Once you hear the echo again, go ahead and disable that device. This way, you can find the device that is causing the echo. You might also want to update your audio drivers. Make sure to close OBS Studio. And in your taskbar search, enter Device Manager and hit Enter to open it up. On this window, expand Audio Inputs and Outputs. Right-click the device that is causing the issue and make sure to update its driver from here. This way, you can easily fix the audio echo in OBS Studio.
And people think these houses come in handy to ensure that the people who are affected by floods, they called it cluster, Mr. Speaker, are also accorded the opportunity of having these particular houses. So, Mr. Speaker, I do not want to belabor much on these particular issues, but my submissions, Mr. Speaker, is number one, how do we make these houses accessible? How do we, or how does the government build these houses? Mr. Speaker, on the question of levies, people introduced many other aspects to the collection of levies. Some wanted levies to be collected and, of course, at the end of it should accrue benefits. Some made proposals to the extent that it should behave like the NSSF model, where at the end of your retirement, you can still access that amount of money. There are so many proposals which people made, Mr. Speaker. And it is upon this House, Mr. Speaker, to make recommendations. And in the end, to do amendments on areas where they think fits to be done. Mr. Speaker, in this particular bill, Mr. Speaker, proposes the formation of a board. And in that aspect, Mr. Speaker, many people also were asking, after collection of this money, Mr. Speaker, how is it going to be managed? How is it going to be implemented? How is it going to be fair? Mr. Speaker, there is a proposal for the formation of a board that will have also to be compliant with the Constitution. And among the many proposals, Mr. Speaker, from the members of the public, including also the professionals, they want a board that will actually manage the funds having been collected by KRA. And that board should manage the funds, allocate the funds to several categories of houses which are going to be built. And Mr. Speaker, when I say the categories of houses, we have the category of affordable housing, which is the normal housing that we know that are low cost. Another category, Mr. Speaker, are institutional housing. And remember, Mr. Speaker, the police officers, the KDF, the prison warders, and all those people who live in our institutions, who work on our institutions, live on houses that are very deplorable. Amongst the allocation of these funds, Mr. Speaker, will go towards those particular housing, Mr. Speaker. On institutional housing, Mr. Speaker, also, you remember that most of our universities do not have enough money to build hostels. And many people propose that we should allocate part of this money to build the hostels so that it can become accessible to our students wherever they are and at a cheaper rate, Mr. Speaker. Among other housing also, Mr. Speaker, which are people who are proposing for allocation of this money are social housing. These are houses like the upgrade of slums, people to move from slums to at least good houses through the social housing program. And among us also areas where people thought maybe this money should be allocated are the county governments. The issue of county governments rose in every other public meeting we had, so that it became apparent that among us, the institutions to be allocated these funds are also county governments. Mr. Speaker, the board also will be given the responsibility, because there was another issue where people are asking, after allocating this money to other institutions like the NHC, the State Department, the county governments, and all those other agencies, how will the board get back the money? Because this money has to be like a revolving fund. After selling those houses, where does that money go? Will it remain with the NHC? Will it with the other agencies? Mr. Speaker, the recommendations which people want is that after these houses have been built, and offtake undertaken, the money should revert back to the board, to the fund, so that it can also be used to build other houses. Mr. Speaker, there was also the question of deposits, which is in this bill. Most of the citizens of this country, Mr. Speaker, feel that there are so many people who may not access enough money to pay a deposit of 10%. And Mr. Speaker, we also muled around it.
I hope
And
this helped
the
you
committee
out.
felt
An easy
that the
tutorial.
question of
Everything you
deposit
need will be
should
listed in the
considered
description
on a
below.
case-by-case
If you experience any
situation.
echo while
Mr.
recording
Speaker,
or
we
live
also
streaming on
thought,
OBS, simply head
for
over
example,
to
the
the
houses which
audio
are
mixer
built in
panel
Nairobi,
located
or
at the
houses built
bottom.
in several areas. Mr. Speaker,
Analyze it
people feel
properly.
percent of the population of this country are living in shanties, temporary homes, slums. Others are living on areas where you can't imagine, Mr. Speaker. It is prudent. It is high time. And so many governments, Mr. Speaker, have run away from this responsibility. Slums. No government others are living on areas where you take the bold step with the president. It is high time. And so many governments, Mr. Speaker, have run away that bold step to ensure no government others are there on areas where you take the bold step in this country, Mr. Speaker, with the president. I particularly have house for the last 10 years to take that bold step in budgets to ensure no government budgets being brought to this house. Mr. Speaker, if you go to the villages, there has been so many budgets done in this house, and you don't even see them. The budget to ensure no government budgets being brought to this house. I personally, if you go to the villages, let us take these bold steps, and you don't even see them. Pass this bill. And wait for the budget, and most of us who are sitting in the oversight committees will ensure that personally, if you go to the village, take these bold steps, and this particular bill, pass this bill, will be put into prudent use. There are so many of us who would say, what is the use? So many of us would also say, how assured are we that we are going to build houses? I've always also said, Mr. Speaker, the appropriation of any money is done in this house. The oversight of any money allocated to the executive is done by this house. It is our responsibility, Mr. Speaker. We cannot run away from our responsibility. Just because we are lazy, we cannot oversight those monies which have been allocated. So, Mr. Speaker, I eye this house. Our people need houses. Everywhere. We went to Nyanza, we went to Western, we went to Northeastern, we went to Coast, we went to Rift Valley. Everywhere, Mr. Speaker, people need houses. It is our responsibility as a house to ensure that we actualize Article 43B of that part of the Constitution. The question of whether how that money is going to be spent rests in this house. It rests especially on all of us, regardless of which political divide you come from. Because every money that has been appropriated here depend on us to ensure that it is utilized properly. With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I wish to second. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Ngeno. I now propose the question, which is that the Affordable Housing Bill, National Assembly Bill number 75 of 2023, be now read a second time. Yes, Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for having given me the first bite of the cherry. Mr. Speaker, let me start by saying that, of course, this bill is obviously a response or a reaction to the now very famous High Court ruling of November 2023. So we must thank our courts for having jolted the executive to do what they should have done at the first instance. But we must also take cognizance of the fact that even as we debate this bill, the matter is still live in court. It is still lying in the Court of Appeal, pending determination. That notwithstanding, let me make the following comments. That if you look at the bill, the introduction to the bill itself, it states categorically that this is an act, that's a bill for an act of parliament to give effect to Article 43(1)(b) of the Constitution, to provide a framework for access to affordable housing and for connected purposes. The Speaker, from the outset, the question one would want to ask, and to ask repeatedly, how on earth is this bill, once, if it is passed and it becomes law, how is it going to contribute to the realization of the right under Article 43(1)(b) of the Constitution? Mr. Speaker, it might be important for me to just read the Article 43(1)(b) for the benefit of members who may not have their Constitution with them, the copies of the Constitution with them. Mr. Speaker, at Article 43(1)(b), the Constitution requires or dictates that every person has the right to accessible and adequate housing. Every person has the right to accessible and adequate housing and reasonable standards of sanitation. And if you want to understand clearly how this bill is not solving the problem, is not addressing the matter of the realization of the right under Article 43(1)(b), you simply go to the paragraph at page 21, 26 of the bill itself. The paragraph dealing with eligibility criteria and application procedure for affordable housing unit. But before I go there, let me now thank the authors of this bill. I wish you could allow Honorable Chunga to listen to me. Let me thank the authors of this bill for having come out now clearly that, unlike what we are being told, unlike what was being sold to us through the now infamous Finance Bill 2023, that it is now clear in this bill that whoever is going to contribute to this fund, this housing levy, is not guaranteed a house. That is now clear. That however much you contribute towards the housing levy, whether you are a salaried employee, you are a Kali artisan, you are a Mkokoteni pusher, you are a boda boda rider, you are a mamamboga, there is no guarantee that you will get a house. That your contributions are not a guarantee that you will get a house. That's now clear. And if you want to confirm that, you go to the paragraph 4 on eligibility criteria and application procedure for affordable housing unit. A person qualifies to be allocated an affordable house unit if that person is a Kenyan citizen who is at least 18 years of age and holds a Kenyan identity card. And it goes on. But what is more curious is at paragraph 31, 2A. An application made under subsection 1 shall be accompanied by proof of requisite deposit approved by the relevant agency of at least 10% of the value of the affordable housing unit being applied for. Now, tell me now, who in Kenya is going to afford the 10% of the value of the affordable housing unit? Who? What we are simply doing is to create opportunities for the people who are already propertied, like you and me, people who are already wealthy, to be able to use proxies to deposit the 10% of the value of those units and acquire as many units as possible. How have you addressed the issue of access to housing under Article 43(1)(b)? Tell me. I need to be educated. Tell me. How? How, Honorable Chunga, my good friend? How? I need to be educated. So, we are simply trying to respond to the queries, the very fundamental queries that were raised by the High Court. My submission is that this bill does not cure the deficiencies that were apparent in the Finance Bill 2023. It does not cure. Mr. Speaker, you must also understand that in this country, even those people who may want decent houses to be able to move from their current dwellings, the shanties as we call them, may not be able to, as a result of other competing needs for the little money that they have. So what then should have happened? And this is something we have said over and over. We have said as Azimio over and over that we are not opposed to the issue of affordable housing. As a matter of fact, the issue of affordable housing was in our manifesto. The point of departure is the implementation. As Azimio, we would have wanted to implement this policy by simply having Parliament appropriate money from Kenyan taxpayers' money. Simply collect taxes in the normal manner and appropriate part of that money to go and construct the houses. No, you're not doing it. You are simply creating new taxes. You are simply creating new taxes earmarked for the housing units. What you are saying, what you are doing is simply overburdening Kenyans to create houses for the benefit of a select few who are really rich and who have got houses in the first place. Mr. Speaker, you go to the implementation. They are saying they will deduct 1.5% of the gross salaries of the employees. Again, that is double taxation. Because already those employees are pay as you earn. Why can't you then even go to the net earnings? But more curiously, the employers are being compelled to match that 1.5%. But when it comes to those who are not salaried, those who are in the informal sector, who are going to be, again, charged this levy through a means I don't know, because I haven't read the report. The report came out too late. I'm told the amendments you're proposing. How you will raise this money from those who are not earning salaries. It is not clear who will match for them. It's not clear. For the employees like us and you, at least our employer, the PSC, the speaker is here, he will match. Yes. But for the Maamboga, who will match for the Maamboga, Mr. Speaker? Who will match the contribution for the border rider? Who? So we are having two different standards, which was raised by the High Court itself. And I'm being careful not to delve into the matters which are preventing through the court, because that would be totally sub judice. Mr. Speaker, you can go on and on and on. The High Court raised the issue of Article 10, Subarticle 2 of the Constitution on national values, especially the matter of participation of the people. I've heard my friend Johan Ngeno eloquently say that he went to Kisumu, he went to Nakuru, he went to Garissa, and people were happy. People were welcoming them with claps and cheers, that they want houses. They were singing, Hosanna, Hosanna. The houses have arrived, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I didn't see them also. In my own county of Zia, I didn't see them. I didn't see them, Mr. Speaker. In my own constituency of Ugunja, I didn't see them. So, how was this public participation conducted? To be able to satisfy the very rigorous requirement under Article 10, Subarticle 2 of the Constitution. How? And remember, there was also a court ruling earlier on the issue of public participation, when the court declared our public participation notice as unconstitutional. Okay? You need to learn law, some law, for you to understand that, Honorable Buyer, yeah. Yeah. Mr. Speaker, it has not been demonstrated how this public participation was effective. Okay? Finally, Mr. Speaker, because I want to leave the space for my colleagues to also contribute. Let me say this, and I want to repeat, that the affordable housing policy could be a good idea. But we seem to be in a hurry. We seem to be in so much in a hurry to have it implemented. And you've heard the sentiments being expressed out there by those in the executive, that hii tutafanya mpende musipende. That language, Mr. Speaker, is very dangerous, especially on a matter which is affecting Kenyan people's pockets. Now we are being told that those hapless traders in Gekomba, in Mariakani, what do you call it, in Miritini, this place, yes. Yes, in Kongoea, in where else? In Chomoroni, in Ugunja, in Chwele, in Nyando, in Kabuchai, in wherever, in Mwingi, are now going to be followed by KRA. As at the moment this bill passes, and it is assented to and it becomes an act of parliament, those people I have mentioned, the border borders, the Maambogas, and the border riders must be prepared that KRA will be after them to be able to get out the 1.5% of their earnings. How they'll compute that, I don't know. I don't know for sure. How we will compute the earnings of a border rider to be able to extract 1.5% is a miracle. Mr. Speaker, therefore, I have to grudgingly oppose this bill. I have to grudgingly oppose it. Thank you.
Manduku. Daniel Manduku.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. From the onset, Mr. Speaker, I want to support the housing bill with amendments. I want to remind this House that besides giving life to Article 43, Kenya is a signatory to many statutes. This includes the UN Habitat Assembly, which is a 193-member states. And besides that, Mr. Speaker, this bill gives life to Sustainable Development Goal number 11, which over time has consistently ensured that all nations comply with high-quality housing and standards of hygiene. Closer home, Mr. Speaker, allow me to give a historical perspective of where we've come from. I remember in the year 1995, as a student of architecture, during the World Habitat Day, the member for Bureti, who then was Minister for Public Works, called Kenyans and set in motion a new agenda to urbanize and develop our slums. And at that time, he came up with a mantra that we must get out of the slums. That was the late Professor Jonathan Ngeno. It has taken us 30 years, Mr. Speaker, to get where we are. We must remember that we are now 4 presidents after. And I stand here to support this because I know that this bill, if well enacted, will give economic stimulus to our country. Mr. Speaker, when you look at the national government CDF allocation to all constituencies, we stand at a mere 43 billion shillings. Today, as we stand here, the housing levy has already collected about 63 billion shillings. A simple arithmetic will tell you that in the next 2 years, every constituency will obviously get more than double the allocation of the national government CDF. How else do we expect to stimulate the local economies if we don't put emphasis on the collection of levy and spending this in the constituencies? Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, I was privileged to visit more than 10 counties, and the issues that the public raised were mainly to do with the fairness of allocation of houses, the procurement of such houses, and the concern on how the 10% deposit would be raised. Madam Speaker, that instead of having the 10%, we would look for an option of renting to own the houses. On the issue of public land being used, the National Land Commission confirmed to us that in compliance with the Land Act, Section 14 and 15 would be employed to convert public land into private land. Madam Speaker, other concerns on the quality and access of the houses are covered by various laws in this country, and I want to state here that there are not less than 10 laws that cover the construction sector. Finally, Madam Speaker, I would urge this House to urgently approve the building code, which has been in abeyance for the last 10 years, so that it can address other gaps that arise in the bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Next chance will go to the member for Kirinyaga, Honorable Njeri.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to support the housing bill, Honorable Speaker. In Kirinyaga County, Honorable Speaker, I have had and done personal visits to various sites where affordable houses are being constructed, Honorable Speaker. I have visited Gishugu constituency, Kirinyaga Center, where I found more than 300 young people, Honorable Speaker, young people who were jobless before the affordable housing program started, Honorable Speaker, who now have a place where they can go every day and earn a living, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the economic activity of the small center, Honorable Speaker, the viewpoint of the people at the ground, Honorable Speaker, is what matters when we are discussing issues to do with affordable housing, Honorable Speaker. The rest of it, Honorable Speaker, is a noise which will not stop and should never stop this House from ensuring that we have progressive programs for our people, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, it is very unfortunate that there has been so much that has been said that is negative about the affordable housing program, Honorable Speaker. The vision of the President, Honorable Speaker, is catering for the future, Honorable Speaker. In Kirinyaga County, as I speak, our land has become so small, Honorable Speaker, that subdividing the same for future generations is no longer tenable, Honorable Speaker. It is why we must ensure as a House that we support this bill, Honorable Speaker. We enact this legislation, Honorable Speaker, so that we can be in line with the recommendations of the judiciary and expedite delivering the plan to the people of this nation, Honorable Speaker. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Member for Kathiani, Honorable Mbui.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity to also make a contribution on this affordable housing bill. Madam Speaker, as we begin this debate, I would have loved to have heard the majority leader tell us when we are getting our refund for the deductions that were done in January on monies that the court said should not have been deducted. Because, I mean, we as a House must also be alive to the fact that we operate in a country that is legal. So when the court pronounced itself and said there are no further deductions to be made, I was shocked that actually in January my pay slip reflects that the government has taken from me 1.5%, and I'm expecting my employer has also paid 1.5%. That is an illegality. So I would like to understand, first thing we need to know is when are we getting our refund, our money back? Madam Speaker, let us discuss this matter and demystify the obsession that Kenya Kwanza seems to have with the issue of houses. And Madam Speaker, it is an obsession because we are fighting to build houses for personal individuals when our children in this country do not even have classes for grade 9. And at the end of this year, junior secondary is supposed to have grade 9. Here we are talking about building houses. We are not a communist country, Madam Speaker. Communist countries are the ones that figure out personal things. We are a capitalist nation. People go to school, and then you go out there and fight for your space and get your resources. So, Madam Speaker, I feel that we seem to be losing the script. But, Madam Speaker, allow me to dispense of certain myths that have always been talked about in this housing project. First one, we have been told here over and over again in public barazas in the House that affordable housing is going to create employment. Let me tell you, Kenyans are not looking for part-time employment, casual employment. People are looking for jobs that are permanent and pensionable. Those are not the jobs that are being offered under this arrangement. The jobs that are being offered here are jobs that will be done for a period of maybe a month, 2 months, maximum 3 months. All the homes we live in were built by people. Are they building now? Are those masons still working there now? Madam Speaker, we must figure out how to create employment and stop deceiving Kenyans and telling them that this thing of housing is going to make them, permanently employed. Madam Speaker, it's also important to note that there's another myth that was peddled during the period of campaigns. And people are told it's bottom up. The people at the bottom of the bracket are going to be brought up. Madam Speaker, now it is clear that Boda Boda and Mama Mboga that were talked about during campaign trail are going to be deducted money for houses that they will probably never own because they can't afford them. Madam Speaker, that is the reality. But Madam Speaker, let's talk about some of these issues that are also constitutional. The issue of housing is actually devolved to the county governments. Fourth schedule is very clear about the responsibilities that are assigned to national government and those that are assigned to the county governments. And I want to confirm that Part 2, subsection 8 of the fourth schedule clearly indicates that housing is actually a function of county government. So, Madam Speaker, as we deal with this, we must know that the national government has only got one role, and that is policy. Not implementation, not in building houses, not in getting land from members, that is not the purpose of the national government. Madam Speaker, on the matter of the levy, because this is one of those things that even when Kenyans did public participation, they said no to. And public participation was actually stopped by the courts of law. And somehow, one of the committees of the House sneaked all over the place and carried out some arrangement of public participation, which was actually illegal, Madam Speaker, if you are to ask me. But then the reality is this. that the levy was already denounced by Kenyans. 90% of Kenyans, during the public participation on the finance bill, said no to the issue of the levy. But now, Madam Speaker, let's talk about that levy. You know, Madam Speaker, pay-as-you-earn income tax are generalized taxes that everyone pays. Madam Speaker, excise duty, VAT, are those taxes that are charged, and only consumers of the goods and services pay that. It's like a toll on the road. It is only the user of the expressway that pays the toll. Now, why is it that you're making every Kenyan pay for houses and not every Kenyan will be a consumer? There are Kenyans, Madam Speaker, who already have mortgages. They are paying mortgages. Civil servants, teachers, public servants that are already actually so high in debt because they are paying for their mortgages. And then you are taking away 1.5% and telling them now you're going to build houses for other people. Madam Speaker, I find this very, very unfair. But Madam Speaker, as I finish, it's important to talk about the regulations, because there are regulations that will eventually be made on the basis of this bill, just in case this bill passes, because I personally am opposing it. Just in case the voting block will be used to pass this thing in the House, I want to point out some of the dangers that we face. First and foremost, what is the valuation and how will the valuation of the houses be done? We are aware that currently some of the affordable houses are more expensive than commercial houses that are being put up by developers. And Madam Speaker, it's shocking considering the land is given for free by government and the money that is being used is taxpayers' money. How does an investor buy land and then take a loan and build a house and charge less than what is being charged by this affordable housing? It is unfortunate, but this smells of a scam, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the other issue is the repayment period. Because the law here does not talk about the repayment period. When we are making regulations, if this passes, let us be careful to name the repayment period. You cannot leave it open-ended. Because, Madam Speaker, I will tell you what I have noticed here, that there are three categories of houses, and they talk about the earnings of the people. And then they are saying that for you to acquire this, you must be able to afford 1/3 of your salary. And there are some people who have been named here that have earned salaries less than 20,000. A person earning 15,000, Madam Speaker, would pay 5,000 a month. A house of 3.5 million, Madam Speaker, would take them 58 years to pay. What repayment period is that? Is that even heavenly possible? Who can start working and be paying for a house for 58 years? So the repayment period must be thought through and discussed and put in the regulations so that we can address it. And finally, Madam Speaker, the Section 31, subsection D, talks about application for allocation. And it says that the agency will make decisions on any other information that may be determined. In essence, what we are doing, we are actually inappropriately delegating powers of this House to the Cabinet Secretary. Because the minute you say that they can make regulations further, they can make those decisions later, and you're not asking or compelling within the bill that this be part of the regulations, then it means you're giving them an open check. They can decide tomorrow it is tall people who will get the houses, it is short people who will get the houses, it is people of less than so many kilos. Madam Speaker, we must be very, very specific. But with those few remarks, Madam Speaker, I feel that this, Madam Speaker, is a bill that we cannot support, and I oppose.
Before we get to the next speaker, allow me to acknowledge students in the public gallery. Number 1, Diamond Junior School from Starehe constituency, Nairobi, and USIU Africa students from Roysambu, Nairobi County. On your behalf and the House, we welcome them to observe the proceedings of the House. The next chance will go to the member for Sigowet Soin, Honorable Justice Kemei.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity you've given me to contribute to this bill. On the onset, Madam Speaker, I wish to say I support the bill. And I support the bill, Madam Speaker, with 4 reasons. Number 1, Madam Speaker, when we fought for independence in this country, we promised our people that we would give them shelter among other basic requirements. Madam Speaker, this is the first deliberate step that we've taken as a nation to make sure that our people have reasonably good accommodation, and providing good shelter for them. Secondly, Madam Speaker, we have a big problem of unemployment in this country. And if you go to construction sites, wherever you see some construction taking place, Madam Speaker, you will see quite a number of Kenyans milling around looking for employment. The housing project, the housing program that will come out of what we're discussing today in Parliament, Madam Speaker, will ensure that the majority of the people who are unemployed in this country get a means of earning an income, even if it is for a short period. And Madam Speaker, we are not talking about laborers alone. We are talking about the professionals in the entire spectrum of employment in this country. We are talking of architects, we are talking of engineers, we are talking of electricians, we are talking of masons, Madam Speaker. This is a very, very good program in which they will be able to get employment. Thirdly, Madam Speaker, I wish to ask the supporters of the bill, and particularly the leader of majority who has brought the bill to Parliament, please make sure that housing is spread all over the country. We must make sure that housing is not in the Nairobi alone, housing is not in the cities alone, housing should be spread to all parts of this country, so that when we look at Kenya, we're looking at a country that looks like the rest of the world. Madam Speaker, finally, if I asked my good friend, Honorable Opio Wandai, to raise his hand, Madam Speaker, it doesn't matter which hand he raises. If he raises the left hand, he has raised his hand. If he raises the right hand, he has raised his hand. So, Honorable Opio Wandai, my good friend, this bill is good, however you look at it. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I support.
I see Honorable Opio Wandai looking at you suspiciously. Just to confirm, we were just saying, he was saying something good about you, as a good friend. The next chance will go to the member for Ugenya, Honorable Ochieng.
Madam Speaker, thank you so much for this opportunity. Madam Speaker, all governments over the world get defined by the things that they do during the time they've been given by the citizens to govern. Governments come to power with their own plans. And this government, Madam Speaker, has decided that this is one thing that they will rise or fall with, that they will make sure that they dignify and humanize the way Kenyans live, that they will ensure that Kenyans are able to get houses that are habitable, houses that dignify them, regardless of how much they earn in their place of work, Madam Speaker. And that's why, Madam Speaker, I want to support this bill, Madam Speaker, because affordable housing is a real issue in this country, Madam Speaker. If you go around the country, it's just not in the slums, it's all over the country. The houses people live in, Madam Speaker, you go to some places in Nyanza, some places in the coast, they are not fit for human habitation. And that's why you are saying, Madam Speaker, that government is required by law to ensure that the housing system that's in the country supports dignified lives under Article 25 of the Constitution, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, number two, the reason this housing program is very important is to help stimulate the construction industry in this country, Madam Speaker. We need to ensure that the housing industry is able to support jobs. And before I go far, Madam Speaker, I want to tell my friend Donde Bumbui that we are not looking at Mijengo jobs. Madam Speaker, the housing industry starts with steel, cement, it goes all the way to timber. It is not Mijengo jobs of 2 days, 3 days, Madam Speaker. It is a whole industry, Madam Speaker. And that's what, Madam Speaker, I want to say, that one thing that we as MPs must do is to ensure that this housing, affordable housing fund is able to help us give rise to industries that will come because of the housing sector boom. Madam Speaker, I say this because in the last 8 years, Madam Speaker, we spent $500 billion shillings, Madam Speaker, to build a railway line, but without a single town, without a single industry, without a single city being built on the wake of $500 billion shillings, Madam Speaker. When we built the railway line, Madam Speaker, when we did the railway line, we were importing cement. We even imported sand because we allowed Chinese to bring here prefabricated rolling stock. We allowed Chinese to bring bolts and nuts. We allowed Chinese to bring everything, Madam Speaker. And so I want to request those who will be in charge of implementing this housing fund that, first of all, we must ensure that the procurement is done right. Madam Speaker, personally, I've had an issue with the way we've gone implementing this housing scheme so far, because we want to have your Kali sector benefit from this housing scheme. We want to have our own industries benefit from this scheme, Madam Speaker. And we cannot go to launch a housing scheme in Homa Bay, and we have not prepared the Juakali sector there to prepare the hinges, the doors, the windows, Madam Speaker. You cannot go launching them in Mombasa, and you've not prepared the Juakali there to. Madam Speaker, I support this bill, but I believe that sequencing is going to be key to ensure that the gains that we're going to make in the housing boom goes to the common management, Madam Speaker. Number two, Madam Speaker, the biggest issue today in the country is, do we have a framework for equitable distribution and allocation of these houses, Madam Speaker? And I want to lead with the majority leader because this is important to me. The question that's being talked about by Bondai and Bombui, we should provide solutions. If you believe that this bill currently does not provide for a way of getting Mamamboga and Bodaboda getting houses, let's write it in the law. Let's put a quota for them. And I'm going to convince the majority leader that we must have a quota under Part 4. Let's have a quota for those kind of people, Madam Speaker. Honorable Chunga,
Honorable Ocheng, Honorable Wandai has a point of order. What is out of order?
Actually, I didn't intend to interrupt my good friend and neighbor, Honorable Ocheng, but I really want to understand whether he's in order for him to direct his address to us, I and Honorable Robert Mbui, and to demand that we provide solutions to the affordable housing crisis. Honorable Speaker, is that conceivable? Is that really conceivable? Honorable Speaker, can you rule him out of order?
Honorable Ocheng, did you address the Honorable Member for Ugenya, for Uguja?
Madam Speaker, that is what a responsible position does. It doesn't just oppose for the sake. A position that is responsible provides solutions. We don't just say this is wrong. You tell us how to do it right. And in this bill, I believe that instead of saying that there's no place for Mamboga and Boda, tell us how to improve it. And I'm going to talk to the majority here, Madam Speaker, that we provide under Part 4 quotas. We must have the quotas for those Bodas. You must have the quotas for the Mambogas. You must have a provision that says that if 100 houses are built in a place, 40 of them will go to Mamamboga or Bodas. We must have that in the law. That's the way to go. You don't just say it's wrong and you keep quiet. You say it's wrong and provide solutions on how this can be done. Now, Speaker, all over the world, we've talked about Singapore, we've talked about Taiwan and Malaysia. These countries grew on the back of housing booms. What's going to mess our housing program, Madam Speaker, for me, is corruption. It's corruption. That's what we're talking about. To ensure that these big projects are going to be corruption-free, Madam Speaker. We can make a good law in this parliament, but if you don't follow up with implementation and ensure that things are done the right way, Madam Speaker, will not go anywhere. And that's why I believe that I will propose an amendment to this bill on a section for procurement. We'll not leave this to procurement laws. We'll make a provision on how we'll procure the materials to be used for this concern, Madam Speaker. We don't want people lying to us that we bought cement at Portland or we bought cement at Savannah and they're importing the cement. We will ensure that timber being used is bought locally. We'll ensure that everything being used in these programs are locally sourced. For me, Madam Speaker, those are things that I expect my colleagues to talk about. How do we ensure that this becomes one of the programs that are able to make sure that we get money through Buy Kenya, Build Kenya? Madam Speaker, I will not keep quiet. If we are going to be launching houses and we are importing cement, I will not keep quiet if you are going to be launching houses and we're importing timber. I will not keep quiet if you're going to be launching houses and we're importing steel. All this must be sourced locally for what the President has promised to come to fruition. Let's ensure that for once, Madam Speaker, we do this in a manner that creates jobs systematically. If we source timber locally, the timber industry grows. If you source cement locally, the cement industry grows. If you source steel locally, the steel industry grows. If you source the technology locally, you transfer that and the industries grow, Madam Speaker. That's what I would require to see happening. Madam Speaker, Kenyans are concerned about the possible favoritism in distribution of these houses and allocation. And that's why, Madam Speaker, we must have a proper system that does not involve human intervention. And I'm happy that this president and this government has decided that they're going to digitize things. Majority Leader, I want to request you, let's digitize the allocation of these houses. Let this not be about someone sitting somewhere and saying that so-and-so gets, so-and-so doesn't get. Let's have a way, even if it's a lottery or a coupon system, let's ensure that we avoid things that will make this not work, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the communities that are giving their lands, the communities giving their lands for these projects, Madam Speaker, must also be looked into. If you are building houses in Ugenya, you must tell us that out of these 100 houses, at least you put aside 20 for people from Ugenya. If you are building houses in Mathare, you must ensure that we are providing 50% of these houses from Mathare people, Madam Speaker. This is a serious project for the president. It must succeed. I don't succeed if there's discipline. If you follow the law to the letter in how we're going to implement this, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I've looked at who are represented in the board that is being proposed, Madam Speaker. And I'm going to again plead to the Majority Leader that in that board, we must have a person from the Juakali sector. In that board. In that board, get a person from from KEPSA, guys who sell these materials for construction. Let's not just have FKE and COTU. Let's have the Juakali sector who are supposed to benefit from this so that they also represent, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to plead to those doing these projects. We cannot be demolishing good houses to build better houses. We have to negotiate. You can't go to Kakamega, demolish houses that were built 2-3 days ago. Go to Bungoma, demolish houses that were built 2-3. These are people who have not done anything wrong. Talk to them. Agree with them that yes, we want to build a bigger thing here. We can't allow Chinese to be building very serious things in Kileleshwa, interfering with their planning, and then you go to Bungoma, Kakamega, and demolish. Let's do this in a humane manner. Let's make this work for Kenyans, Mr. Speaker. Madam Speaker, where Kenyans have concerns, let's address them, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to finish by saying this, that
30 seconds, wind up.
I've heard people talk about people contributing money and they want to get housing. Madam Speaker, there are those who pay their taxes, which we use to pay school fees for our kids. They have no kids. There are those who pay their taxes, which we use to run the health system. They have not become sick. They are not going to, Madam Speaker. So an argument that because you're not going to get a house, you shouldn't be taxed, Madam Speaker, is wrong. There are people who have paid money for school fees and bursaries. They have no kids. So this is social housing. We as a country must carry each other along. We cannot say that because I can't pay for what I will not need. Madam Speaker, our humanity, our Ubuntu-ness, our belongingness requires that those who have help those who don't have acquire, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to wish the President well in this particular program and request Parliament that let's keep our eyes open. When our people give money for this project, it must be used for the right reason. Corruption must not be allowed in this project. Madam Speaker, I support and thank you.
Before we give the next person, allow me to interrupt the business of the House to order number 5 on papers. And honorable members, I will give a guide on the tabling of budget policy statement and medium-term debt management strategy for the financial year 2024-2025. Honorable members, this guide relates to the submission of 2024 budget policy statement and 2024 medium-term debt management strategy. As you may be aware, Section 25 of the Public Finance Management Act 2012 requires the National Treasury to submit the budget policy statement, BPS, to Parliament by 15th February each year. In this regard, I wish to inform the House that in compliance with the said provisions of law, the Cabinet Secretary of the National Treasury for the National Treasury and Economic Planning has submitted the 2024 budget policy statement, the 2024 medium-term debt management strategy, and the attendant documents. Before permitting the leader of the majority party to lay the BPS and the debt strategy on the table of the House, allow me to guide the House on the next steps to be taken. Honorable members, Standing Orders 232, 5 and 7 provides as follows, and I quote, number 5, upon being laid before the House, the budget policy statement shall stand committed to each department or committee to consider and make recommendations to the Budget and Appropriation Committee within 7 days of committal. 7, within 14 days following the tabling of the budget policy statement, the Budget and Appropriation Committee shall table a report in the House for consideration in accordance with the provisions of Section 25(7) of the Public Finance Management Act. It is therefore expected that immediately upon being laid, departmental committees will forthwith commence consideration of the BPS in accordance with their respective mandates and submit their reports to the Budget and Appropriation Committee. Thereafter, the Budget and Appropriation Committee will table its report on the BPS to the House within the set timelines. Honorable members, order, Honorable Opio. Honorable members, I also wish to remind the House that the consideration of the BPS ought to be preceded by consideration of the debt management strategy. Of note, a resolution of the House on the debt management strategy sets the appropriate limit on proposed domestic and foreign borrowing for the next financial year. For clarity, Standing Order 232A, 4 and 6 provides that, 4, within 10 days following the tabling of the debt management strategy, the Public Debt and Privatization Committee shall table a report in the House for consideration. 6, the House shall consider the report of the Public Debt and Privatization Committee on the debt management strategy before considering the report for the Budget and Appropriations Committee on the budget policy statement. I therefore urge the Public Debt and Privatization Committee to expedite consideration of the 2024 debt management strategy in order to clear the way for the consideration of the BPS. I will now allow the Leader of the Majority Party to lay the 2024 budget policy statement and debt management strategy. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Thursday, February 15, 2024. 1, the budget policy statement. 2, the 2024 medium-term debt management strategy. 3, the medium-term revenue strategy for the financial year 2024-2025, financial year 2026-2027, and 4, the 2024 budget policy statement, non-financial indicators for the financial year 2024-2025, and the medium term. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Asante. Zamu inayofuata mbunge wa Mombasa, Mheshimiwa Zamzam.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Na mimi niweze kuchangia mjadala wa leo. Mheshimiwa Spika, pesa ambazo zinakusanywa kwa wananchi, leo nimepata kuelewa kuwa ni bilioni 63 ambazo zimekusanywa kwa housing levy. Hizi pesa kwanza, mahakama ilivyobandua mambo ya housing levy, hizi pesa zinafaa zirejeshwe kwanza kwa wananchi mpaka vile mahakama itakapoamua. Nafikia wamepeleka rufaa, tuelewe kuwa itakuwa namna gani. Mheshimiwa Spika, nyumba zimejengwa hata Mombasa, tumeona watu wakatolewa katika nyumba zao Pakistan, wakaambiwa nyinyi ambao ni maskini, nyumba zikijengwa hapa mtakuwa nyinyi wa kwanza kupawa hizi nyumba. Mheshimiwa Spika, mpaka leo wakazi wa Pakistan nyumba zimetimia, na mimi nilisikia yule ambaye alikuwa amepewa hii contract akisema kuwa mikono yake imefungwa. Aliomba kabisa, nikisikia na masikio yangu, akawa anaomba, nasema basi tuwape hawa watu waliotoka katika hizi nyumba, tuwape kwanza nafasi ya kuingia. Hawakuweza kuregeshwa pale. Mheshimiwa Spika, nyumba zile zauzwa milioni 7, milioni 5. Mheshimiwa Spika, tusifanye mambo ya danganya toto. Ukaweza kumdanganya mama mboga na yule muuza viazi na yule mwenye kusukuma mkokoteni kuwa hizi nyumba zitakuwa nyumba zao. Mheshimiwa Spika, kumbe tunawahadaa wananchi. Mheshimiwa Spika, mambo ya ujenzi wa nyumba nafikiri yalianza kule mwanzo, hata wakati wa Mheshimiwa Uhuru Kenyatta aliweza kufanya sehemu hapa upande wa Kibera, upande huu mwingine. Lakini Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi nataka nimpongeze Mheshimiwa Uhuru Kenyatta kwa sababu watu walioingia pale ni wale watu waliokuwa wametoka katika yale manyumba wakati yanabomolewa. na wakapewa hizo nyumba, wanalipa 2,500, 3,000 mpaka watakapomaliza wachukue zile nyumba. Lakini kwa sasa mambo yanaendelea ni hujuma, Mheshimiwa Spika. Nyumba za bomolewa, kwa mfano juzi wamebomolea watu wa Changamwe zile nyumba. Lakini hata ile notice, tunajua pengine nyumba zingine ni za kwao. Hata ile notice pia kupatia mwananchi imekuwa ni ngumu, Mheshimiwa Spika. Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi ningependa kiongozi wa wengi alioleta mjadala huu atuelezee huyu mama mboga, huyu bodaboda anashinikizwa vipi ndani ya mambo ya housing levy wakati ambapo hayuko kazini. Wale ambao wanafanya kazi ndio ambao wanakatwa hizi pesa. Je, huyu mama mboga ataingizwa vipi pale? Aweze kutuelezea hapa, Mheshimiwa Spika. Mheshimiwa Spika, ni dhahiri kuwa wafanyakazi wa serikali wengi walikuwa wamechukua pesa ili kuweza kuchukua loan kuweza kujenga zile nyumba zao, na wana manyumba yao tayari. Ni dhulma kubwa wao kukatwa sasa tena pesa za housing levy wakati ambapo yale mapeni hawawezi wakatumia wao. Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Spika, serikali na mashamba mengi sana. Hata pia wananchi pia wengine maskini wana mashamba yao. Mheshimiwa Spika, kama serikali kweli inataka kujengea mwananchi nyumba, mbona wale ambao wanakaa kwenye nyumba ya matope katika mashamba yao wasiende kule wakawajengea nyumba za kisasa? Wawaambie sasa mtakuwa mwalipa 2,200 mpaka mmalize, lakini muwe katika nyumba ambao ziko thabiti. Mheshimiwa Spika, lakini yale ambao tunaweza kushuhudia ni uvunjaji wa majumba, kunyang'anya watu mashamba yao, kudhalilisha Wakenya. Wakenya wanalia huku nje, Mheshimiwa Spika. Na mimi nataka niulize swali moja tu. Kwa sasa Kenya ina deni ya trilioni 11. Na tumemsikia juzi Mheshimiwa Rais akisema kuwa madeni yamekuwa mengi, kulipa inakuwa mtihani. Wewe una deni linalokusumbua. Kwa nini uchukue pesa tena uende kuweka kwa vitu ambavyo Wakenya hata hawana haja nazo? Wakenya wakipiga kura walitoka ndani ya majumba yao, hawakutoka msituni. Mheshimiwa Spika, haya mapeni ambayo anachukua kujengea majumba, Mheshimiwa Spika, alipe deni tumuelewe, anachukua lakini analipa deni. Mheshimiwa Spika, sio madeni yanazidi kukua, wananchi wanalia, pesa zao zinakatwa. Kwanza ile fuel levy 16%, hiyo ilikuwa inatosha kufanya haya mambo yote, kwa sababu alikuwa ameenda extreme. Mheshimiwa Spika, tusizungushane huku na huku 10 kibaten. Mheshimiwa Spika, Wakenya wamechoka na goji kirba goji. Mheshimiwa Spika, Wakenya wanataka Mheshimiwa Rais aweze kuongeza production. Mheshimiwa Spika, ukiweza kuingia kwa mshahara wa wananchi, mwenyewe wana madeni chungu nzima.
Haya, kiongozi wa walio wengi ako na hoja ya nidhamu.
Asante Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, kwa hoja ya nidhamu, najua kuna mswada wa kuongea mambo ambayo kwa lugha ya kimombo tunasema relevance, na nasikia mheshimiwa yale mambo yanayohusu hoja iliyomo mbele yetu. Nimesikia mheshimiwa Zamzam akiongelea fuel levy, na kwa mambo ya manyumba sijui fuel levy ni gani hiyo. Labda mheshimiwa Zamzam atuelezee hii fuel levy ni gani. Nimesikia akiongea mambo ya order za koti ambazo ziko Changamwe ambazo hazihusu mswada. Madam Speaker, naomba tu mjulishe mheshimiwa Zamzam.
Patia mheshimiwa Zamzam dakika moja atakujuza.
Mheshimiwa,
umetaja kodi tofauti.
Mheshimiwa kiongozi wa wengi, ikiwa mwalimu alikuwa anafunza darasani na hukumuelewa, hiyo si shauri yangu. Yule mzazi wako alokulipia school fees atakuuliza ukifika nyumbani. Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Spika, hizi zote ni ushuru zinazokatwa wananchi. Kitu ninachosema, kwa nini uongeze ushuru mwingine katika ushuru ambao ulishakata zamani? Tumia ule ushuru uliokata 16%, fanya haya mazagazaga yote ambao wataka kufanya, kwa sababu Wakenya tayari washadhulumika katika ile 16%. Kwa nini tuje tuwafinye tena na housing levy wakati hata bodaboda hajui mambo ya mshahara ni nini, mama mboga hajui mshahara ni kitu gani? Maskini ya Mungu, nimeona wameingia mpaka vibanda, sijui itakuwaje Kenya. Ukitaka serikali ama taifa lako liende kwa uthabiti. Mheshimiwa Spika, punguza ushuru, zidisha mazao. Ukizidisha mazao, Wakenya watakuwa na furaha ya kukatwa ushuru. Mheshimiwa Spika, na mimi napenda kuelezea wenzangu mlioko upande ule, najua wengine pengine wana shida zao nyingi, na mpaka wanakuwa kama vile wajua maiti akiwa na inzi umfeta mpaka kaburini. Mimi nataka kuambia, mtaogopa pengine zile shida zenu mlizonazo, mwataka msaidiwe kule juu, lakini mkirudi kule chini kwa wananchi mtapigwa makatafunua, mtaenda kulilia na shida zenu kule chini. Ni wakati jumba hili lisimame na wananchi wa Kenya. Ni wakati jumba hili liweke misingi thabiti ya kuweza mtetea mwananchi wa kawaida. Ni wakati jumba hili, uko kwenye serikali, uko kwenye upinzani, lakini simama na watu wako, mwambie rais, hii housing levy imezidi sana. Mheshimiwa Rais, tunakuomba basi ile ulochukua ile 16% fanya huko maneno yako, lakini haya mengine jamani, mhurumie mwananchi wa kawaida. Kila mahali, Mheshimiwa Spika, ukiona kiongozi wa taifa anakwenda kila mahali kisha anazomwa, si ishara nzuri. Mheshimiwa Spika, ni ishara kuwa Wakenya wamechoka, ni ishara kuwa Wakenya wanahangaika. Mheshimiwa Spika, na mimi sisemi kwa kuchukia, nasema kwa kutengeza, kwa sababu leo kesho Mheshimiwa Rais akienda kukaa kando peke yake atasema Mama Zamzam alisema ukweli, nyinyi wenzangu ndio mnaonidanganya, mnazidi kunididimiza. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi naongea kama mama ambaye niliweza kuuza sambusa, naongea kama mama ambaye niliweza kufanya kazi kama housekeeper kule Saudi Arabia. Mheshimiwa Spika, sisi hatujui mambo ya mshahara, kukatwa housing levy, hatujui kuendaje. Kwa hiyo wasitumie majina ya mama mboga, wakatumia majina ya mvuta mkokoteni kudhulumu wale wafanyakazi ambao tayari katika mishahara yao wakati mwingine inasoma zero salary. Mheshimiwa Spika, wananchi na wabunge wenzangu, mwambieni rais ukweli. Mambo enda yombo, mambo kangaja, huenda yakaja. Kenya yadidimia, musiingize president mahali pabaya. Waheshimiwa wenzangu, hii mambo imekwisha hapa. Hatuoni mama mboga, hatuoni mvuta mkokoteni, tunaona daktari anayedhulumiwa, tunaona mwalimu anayedhulumiwa, tunaona Wakenya wanaodhulumiwa na wanasikia uchungu. Na waombeni, mambo ya housing levy imekataliwa kotini. Jamani, mengine tukubali yaishe. Koti kishasema, mlivyopewa uongozi sisi tulikubali akaisha, na sasa hii housing levy imekataliwa, kubalini yaishe, tuweze kujenga Kenya kwa furaha na upendo bila tax nyingi. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika.
Aya, asante. Nafasi hii mwende Mheshimiwa Paul Nzengu, mbunge wa Mwingi Kaskazini.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. From the onset, I want to say that I have some issues with this bill. First, because I think the way it has been structured and the living that has been incorporated in this bill are not supposed to be levies as such, but I think it shouldn't be money that is contributed to a trust or to a fund in the same manner that NSSF is contributed, so that once you've done contribution over years, you can be able to claim back your contribution either in the form of a house or in the form of the savings, just like NSSF does. Because then the question goes, then if we are going to contribute monies and then people are going to apply for loans, these loans are going to be paid back. These loans are going to be paid back. What happens to the initial capital that has been contributed? Does it mean that the government will then divert that money to some other uses? That is not being informed by this bill. So I think I want to ask the proponents of this bill to look into that. Madam Speaker, I am aware that small business people are going to close down, because then already they are struggling to pay the salaries, and now a burden has been added onto them to match the levy for the employees. Already people are struggling with the burden of paying that small salary that they have been paying, and now an extra 1.5% has been incorporated. So that means an increase into the salary that they are paying. The other issue, Madam Speaker, is on the issue of the eligibility to access to this housing. For example, when you go to the definition, the social housing unit with a plinth of that much, it's targeted a person whose monthly income is below 20,000. I'm wondering where in Kenya, when you have an income of 20,000, how you can save money enough to be able to pay a loan for a house. Those houses, the cheapest is going for around maybe 2.5 million, almost 3 million. How many years will it take for someone who is earning, who has an income of 20,000, which income has to be distributed between competing needs of the family, including food and other basic needs? Madam Speaker, I want to go very fast to the board. The board is constituted to be able to distribute money to different groups of different implementers of the objective of the bill. The board is supposed to give 30% to National Housing Corporation, supposed to give 30% to Kenya Slum Upgrading and Low-Cost Housing and Infrastructure Trust Fund. It's supposed to give 36% to the Ministry of Housing, and then 2% goes to the collector, who in this case is KRA, and the administrator in this case, who is the board. Now I'm wondering, how is the board going to be able to even coordinate and control all these huge amounts of money that are going to be given to different bodies of government? And then all these bodies have got an administrative arm in their component as they implement the project. Why then do we duplicate administrative cost in 4 different bodies of government when this money should have just been, if that happens? Because of course I oppose, but I know the tyranny of numbers will play against me. But even when that happens, why don't we have a centralized way of just remitting the money direct from Treasury to the implementers? Why do we have to break it down into 3 different...
The only way to do it is to automate it.
Agencies?
What Zapier allows us to do is connect to our customers' Shopify store, WooCommerce store.
Of implementing the project. Madam Speaker, I want to
connect to our customers' Shopify store, WooCommerce store.
The CEO of implementing the project, which is clause number the project 21. Madam Speaker,
connect to our customers' Shopify store, WooCommerce store.
The CEO of implementing, which is